Hello and welcome to day 4 of our Macintosh lessons video series. Today we're going to be going over Apple applications that come preloaded on your Macintosh computer. Those applications are, but not excluded to, Safari, Mail, Pages, Numbers, Disk Utilities, and Calendar. So this first photo is an example of Safari. And what Safari is the default internet browser that comes on Macs. Now, if I take us out of here for a live example, I can show you that the symbol is right here, this compass, and when we click on it, Safari opens up. And this is what you would use to get to any website. And we have the taskbar up here. This is where we can show multiple tabs, add a tab, a share button. This brings up our reading list as well as bookmarks. And you don't necessarily have to use Safari. You can't get rid of it, but you can use it to download another browser and then make that your main browser if that's what you'd like to do. Alright, next up we have Mail. And so Mail is the default email application that comes loaded with the Mac computer, and you are able to set up your email accounts in Mail through the settings on Mac. And we went over that earlier in this series, but let's go ahead and open up Mail. And as you can see, this is what it looks like. It is, in fact, the same as the preview photo, or the example photo rather. And you can add various different emails that you have, email accounts, and customize them as you see fit within the Mail app. And its symbol is envelope that you would receive in the mail, and the way that you would go about adding your accounts, well, you can do it from Mail, but you can also go to System Preferences, which is the gear, and then Internet Accounts within System Preferences, and that's where you can add various email accounts that you have, as well as accounts that have access to contacts, calendar, messages, things like that. Okay, and next we have a photo example of Pages, which is Apple's word processor. So it is similar to Microsoft Word or Google Docs, but it is Apple's version, and the format is slightly different, but it has all the same features that you would find in those other programs as well, and it's free and is preloaded onto your Mac computer. So we'll go ahead and do a live example of that. So I'm going to go into my Launchpad here, which will show me all my apps. And I'm going to go ahead and find Pages, which looks like a notepad page with a pen on it. When we click on that, we get a window that allows us to either choose a current document we would already have to work on somewhere in Finder, so that means somewhere either in a cloud storage space or on our hard drive. but I don't have any, so I'm going to do a new document. But as you can see up here, technically we're already in the Pages application. You can always tell what current application you are in and is at the forefront of your screen by looking at the top left next to the apple. It will say the name of the program or application that you're currently interacting with. So Pages right here. And I'm going to do a new document. Just going to choose a blank template. Here we are. We're in Pages, which is, like I said, a word processor, and it is similar, just a different layout than you might be used to with something like Word or Google Docs, but you'll find the same features available. And up next, we have Numbers, which is Apple's spreadsheet application. It would be similar to Microsoft's Excel or Google Sheets. And here is the photo example, but let's go ahead and do a live example. So once again, I'm going to go to Launchpad, and I'm going to find Numbers, which is represented here by this bar graph, which has graph paper behind it, graphing paper, so it looks a bit like a spreadsheet. And we're going to open it up, and it's going to be the same as when we open up Pages. I could open up an existing document, or I can go ahead and create a new one, which is what I'll do here. This time I'm going to choose a template that's already set up, so I'm going to do, how about personal savings? So now this opened me up with a blank personal savings numbers page. And actually, I'm going to go back and show you what it would look like when you open it up just with a blank template as well, because this looks a bit more like other spreadsheet programs would. The template sort of puts it in a finalized format, but templates are what you would find in Excel and Sheets as well, so it's good to note that they do have pretty much the same features and functions. However, once again, with Apple's version of spreadsheets, the program tends to have a slightly different layout than the others. All right. Oops. And so next, we have disk utilities. And disk utilities is where you can go to see the properties of your hard drive. And to find disk utility, we will once again go to the Launchpad, and then we're going to open this little app folder called Other. As you can see, it looks like the same symbol as the other apps, but it has apps within it. So when we open that up, we have access to some more utility-like applications, and one of them is disk utility, which is right here, represented by the stethoscope on top of the hard drive. It's symboling a bit of first aid, if you will. And so when we click on that, it takes us into disk utility, and that gives us various different options or levels of access to our hard drive. We can run a first aid repair on it. We can, add volumes if we'd like to, partition it, we could erase it, restore it, unmount it, etc. Okay, and next we have a photo example of Calendar, the last Apple application that we will be talking about in this lesson, but not the end of the list of applications that Apple puts on your computer by default. All right, and what we're going to do, let's go ahead and go to a live example of calendar. So I'm going to go down to the dock, and you can see the calendar icon is represented here with a little calendar as the icon with the date and month. When we open it up, we can see what we have going on for the day. And this is another situation where whatever accounts you have, they will show up in the various Apple applications as you see fit. So if you add your email and your email has a calendar that's attached to it, you can put that calendar in here just by entering your account information within Internet accounts under System Preferences. Okay.
Hi, we have a little bit of extra time, so I thought I'd go over some of the settings in a little bit more detail. If you go up in the upper left-hand corner on the Mac screen, there is an apple, an icon of an apple. This is the Apple menu. Click on that and you get this little drop-down menu. About this Mac, System Preferences, the App Store, Recent Items, Force Quit, Sleep, Restart, Shutdown, Lock Screen, and Log Out of your account. Let's go into About This Mac. This is a really useful place because it tells you what kind of computer you have. In this case, we have a Mac Mini from 2020 with an M1 chip. It tells us we have 8 gigabytes of memory and the serial number. And it tells us which operating system we're running and what version. Mac OS Big Sur 11.5.2. If you want to see if there's an update to do, you can click on Software Update down here in the bottom right-hand corner. System Report will give you a list of all the hardware attached to this computer. You can go down, look at your Ethernet cards, or if you have FireWire, if you have a CD ROM player in it, all of those things. And then there's also some software there. Every once in a while, that's something that you'll need to do to find out about some details in your computer. So that's the overview. If we go to displays, we only have one display on this computer, but we could set up 2 displays or multiple displays. And this would be where we could say where we want them situated next to each other, on top of each other. Storage you'll come to quite often. This is where you find out about the hard disk storage or the flash storage in your computer. In this case, it shows here that we have 426 gigabytes available. It's a 500 gigabyte drive, so 494 is the usable amount. We gave it a little minute here, and it has now split up this storage that we're using into these different areas that tell us how much of each we have used. If we go into Manage, now we can look at the details of this storage. It will give us ideas if we're trying to clear out some of the storage, if we're very full. We can do things like empty the trash automatically, or we can look at all of our folders and documents and applications in the order of the size so that we can see the biggest ones. You may be able to delete one movie and save several gigabytes. That would make more sense than deleting hundreds and hundreds of text files, which are tiny. So this is the area where you can see how to do that. So our applications take up 25 gigabytes, our documents only 730 megabytes. Kilobyte is the smallest measurement that we use. There are 1,000 kilobytes in a megabyte. Generally, text documents are in the kilobyte range, maybe hundreds of kilobytes, but 1,000 kilobytes is 1 megabyte. and 1,000 megabytes is 1 gigabyte. So all of our documents are 730 megabytes. That means all of our documents are less than 1 gigabyte. So if you have a movie that is 2 gigabytes, we could delete every document on this computer and we would save less space than deleting one movie. So that's just a way to think about it. Our trash currently has less than a gigabyte in it, and we do empty it routinely. Photos is obviously one of the biggest things. We have 5 gigabytes of photos, and we do not have an extensive photo library. If we had thousands of photos, that would be much, much larger. Music creation is like GarageBand, and we have downloaded some of the sample beats and instruments, and so that's why that has 2 gigabytes of storage used. We really don't store music on this computer, and so that's a much smaller. That's only 2 megabytes, so there's really no music on here at all. So that's a useful thing, and you find that in the Apple menu under Storage. Support and service are just ways for you to call Apple and ask them questions if you need to. So the other things under the Apple menu, System Preferences, you can also get to System Preferences. Often you'll have it on your dock. It's this gray series of nested gears. You also can go into Finder, this happy face down here, and go to Applications. Finder is your file directory structure, and your favorites will look different than our favorites. You get to choose what your favorites are. You can put the things up, the locations up here that you go to regularly, but everyone will have applications in their file directory structure. And if you go down to the S's, System Preferences is one of the applications. So that's 3 different ways to get to your System Preferences. Here, down here in the dock, generally you don't have to have it down there, but most people do. And going into Finder and looking in your applications. So back to the Apple menu. Force quit. If you have an application that's just grinding and grinding and grinding and not going anywhere, this is one of the ways that you can force it to quit. So if you click, if you are in an application, click outside of the window to get into the Finder. That's generally a little bit easier way, but the Apple menu is accessible no matter what applications you're in. So you're going to go into the Apple menu and click on Force Quit. It's going to show you all of the applications that you currently have running. And if one of them is not responding, that means that the computer actually is aware that it is not behaving correctly. That would be especially one that you might need to force quit. But any of these, you can choose, single click on it to choose it, and then you can choose the force quit button down here in the bottom right. And then I usually recommend people restart their computer, and then you can open the program back up. Force quitting does exactly that. It forces it to quit. It does not give it the same opportunity to pack up and put things away that quitting normally does. So I generally, if I have to force quit an application, I'll then go back into it, open it up, and quit it again, just to allow it to do the normal routine putting away that it needs to do. Back up into the Apple, sleep, restart, and shut down. Sleep means turn off my monitor, make my monitor go black, but don't actually shut down my computer. People often get confused about sleep and shutdown. If your computer goes to sleep because you're not using it or because you put it to sleep like this, it has not put anything away. It has not straightened itself up. It is just using less power. And so it darkens the monitor and it waits for you to wake it up. When you wake it up, it wakes up very quickly because it is only asleep. It's not actually shut down. But restart and shutdown are specifically very important to allow the computer to put things away, to reset themselves, to begin again with all of the processes. So we would recommend that you restart or shut down your computer at least weekly. There's no magical correct number. If something's going wrong, I always say the first thing to do is to restart or shut down your computer. Restart is just shut down and start back up. Otherwise, you shut down, and then when you choose to, you start back up. The process is virtually identical. And so if anything is going wrong, restart or shut down is the first thing that you do to see if you can correct it. And it is good to do periodically because it just allows the computer to do some maintenance that it can't do otherwise. Sometimes when you run an update, it will require a restart, and that's always important to let it do because updates are very important. Most of them are security updates, and then some of them have other functionality. Lock screen, log out are less important for most people. So let's just hop down here and let's go into system preferences and run through a few of those now as well. So here's your system preferences window. This first one, this is the Apple ID that we're logged into. If we go here into this Apple ID, we're going to see our iCloud account. We're going to see, this is where you find information about who's logged into the computer, what Apple ID controls this computer. Passwords and security, these are your security settings. There's generally a credit card associated with it, and you can see what computers are logged into this Apple ID. If you choose, you can, I'll pick one that's not this computer. We can choose one and we can have it removed. So if you see computers that you don't know or that you don't use anymore, you can come in here and you can remove them. It'll log you out of your Apple ID. So iCloud, this is where we say we do back up our computer on iCloud. And so this is where we say which applications we allow to back up their data in iCloud. Down here is where we show how much cloud space we have. And in our case, we have purchased additional iCloud storage because we back up many computers using this. Family here, this is only if you're using the Apple Family setup. This Apple Family allows you to share subscriptions, storage that you've purchased, music, movies, things like that. And if you have children who have Apple devices, you can also set child settings, security settings as well. So in this case, the family, meaning other computers that are logged into this Apple ID, are also using some of this storage. So most of these are pretty self-explanatory. The only one I would specifically mention is mail. This is not backing up your mail. Your mail is already on other cloud computers. It's on Google's computer, or it's on Apple's computer, or Comcast's computer. This is really the backing up of mail settings. Mail, unless you have set it up in a very specific manner, the mail is kept on the server of the mail, the provider of the email. Comcast, Verizon, Yahoo, Hotmail, Gmail, Google. So this is more about the settings. Contacts, calendars. If you don't use some of these, you can turn them off. But also, if you don't use them, their storage requirements would be, almost nothing. So I don't use stocks on this computer, but backing it up doesn't really do anything it doesn't take up any space because there isn't anything to be backing up. So to go back to the main setting, this right up here, there's this left arrow, and I go back to the list of system preferences. So some of the things that you'll want to do in this, the things that we come here most often for are accessibility settings, changing the way our mouse is set up, or the size of our text, fixing sound issues, or correcting preferences when we are starting to use a new program that needs access to our camera, like adding Zoom to a program, to a computer, or things like that. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'll just touch on a few of them, and you can certainly make an appointment and come in and see some additional ones. So general, this is the general color scheme, the layout. If I pick dark mode, it looks quite different. It's a little easier on your eyes. Auto will change between light and dark based on the ambient lighting and the lighting, the time of day kind of. Accent colors, how your scroll bar works. Some people who are used to a Windows machine like to scroll in one direction, and people who are used to a Mac like to scroll in the other direction, and things like that. So those are just very general things. Your desktop, your screensaver, what kind of picture do you want in the background, and when your computer starts to go to sleep, what do you want the screensaver to look like? Notifications is an important one. Which of your applications do you allow to make noise on your computer when they need to tell you something, or pop up a little box in the corner here? Or we have most of our notifications off. FaceTime is turned on because if somebody calls us with FaceTime, we would like to get the notification for it. But most of these other things, we don't really need the computer to be telling us when they're doing something, because they're not really doing anything that we need notifications for. Mail, generally people want to know when a new email comes in. Badges are the little red numbers that you sometimes see in the corner of the application down here, telling you how many unread emails there are. I often tell people, if you have thousands or hundreds of unread emails, you probably don't need the badge, because it isn't really meaningful to you. The difference between 328 and 329 is not meaningful, and it often causes people a great deal of stress to see how many emails they have unread. You can still have it make a noise when a new email comes in without having a little badge number there with this really large number on it. So this is where we set the notifications for all of the applications that we're using here. Internet accounts is where we log into all of our email accounts we use for calendars, accounts we use for notes. That's often if somebody says, I'm not getting my emails anymore, I'm having an issue with contacts from my Gmail account, we'll often have them come in here, go into the internet accounts, delete the account, and re-add it. As I said, the emails themselves and the contacts, etc., are all stored in the cloud. So you're not deleting the emails, you're deleting the connection between this computer and that account. And so all you need to do is delete it and then add it back in again, and it fills in all those emails. Accessibility is a key one. This is where you can set different settings on your computer that often help people, whether they have disability issues or just usability issues. I like my text a little larger. So this is where you do some of those things. Some of these are very much accessibility. They're for people who are blind or are deaf. And there are settings to set up screen readers and control the computer with your voice and things like that. much too much detail to actually go into all of it. It's just important to know where you'll find those things, and that's right here in this accessibility. Screen time you can use for yourself. You can say, I don't want to be on Facebook more than an hour a day. And you can set it for yourself. You can override it, but it will just remind you after you've spent an hour on the particular website or application. It just keeps time and then lets you know. And you can override it if you want. This is also, in a different way, screen time can be used when you have children's accounts and you want to put some limits on what they're able to do. Security and privacy is a huge one. This is where you're going to store, this is where your stored passwords are. This is where you allow applications to use your location or your microphone or your camera. Sometimes when you try to download a program, it will say it was blocked because it wasn't in the App Store. This is where you go to say, it's okay, I know what I'm doing here, those kinds of things. Sound, Bluetooth, trackpad, mouse. This is where you're going to say, how fast do I want my mouse to go back and forth across the screen? Do I want, see how when I zoom it back and forth, it gets a little bigger? That's something you can set up here. You can make your cursor much larger if you want. You can change some of the what the clicks mean. So these things are all either in accessibility or in the actual device. And Time Machine is the built-in backup in a Macintosh. If you either have a Wi-Fi connected hard drive or you have a wired hard drive, you can have the computer do automatic backups. It's a great program, and it's very easy to access, to find things that you might have accidentally deleted or lost. You can go back in time through these automatic backups and find and restore something that you had in the past. So this is where you get to it and set it up. Most people who use Time Machine will also have it add the app up here in this upper right hand corner area, but that's not required, and you can get it here. So I hope these were a little bit helpful, just a little bit more detail because we had a few minutes here at the end of this program. Give us a call and make an appointment if you'd like to learn more. Thank you very much.
And that concludes our 4th lesson in this Macintosh video series. And just to summarize a bit what we went over in today's lesson, the main thing to take away is that the preloaded applications made by Apple are easy to use as well as useful. Many of them are very similar to applications of the same kind you may be familiar with made by other companies. And so what I mean by that is that Apple has some extremely great quality apps that it has preloaded on your computer right when you buy it. So you might think that you need to go get a third-party software for something that you need to do, when in reality Apple probably already has a program or application that is meant to do exactly that and meant to meet your needs and is already right there ready to go. No need to pay for anything extra. The biggest difference between Apple's version of some applications that are similar to other ones is like the difference would be just stylistic and the visual, but the functionality and the features are the same. So that's the big takeaway from today's lesson. This is where I would usually ask questions, and I want to thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed our Macintosh video series and hope to see you all again in the next series.